tell my younger self as far as writing stuff? Because a lot of this stuff is organic. You learn it as you go.
It's strange. It's nothing I ever expected.
I want to tell my stories by eliciting emotion in my audience.
So it's an organic process. They sort of layer on top of each other. Each one makes the next layer more obvious to me.
This whole thing could not have gone any smoother.
I usually say squad only in groups of 3. I like the batches, like squat, squat, squat.
Look, guys, this one's not going to be like normal. It's just not.
Welcome to the Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is the Melith, who is Kayleen Williams.
That's a big difference. It's like, are you talking or are you doing? What's happening here?
We still have all the pets that think, oh, it's time to eat. It doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m.
My name is Walt, and this is Coffee and Concepts on Keystroke Medium.
After that trailer, I will totally watch that movie.
Hey guys, happy Friday. Welcome to the Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is my co-host, Walt Robinson.
Kayleen Williams. Oh, I'm sorry.
She is unfortunately not feeling well today, but we miss her. We love her, sending her all the hugs and prayers over the airwaves. And hello to Richie Billing from across the pond. He is here today with us.
How's it going?
Good. And we have Trucker Charlie. He was the first in the comments saying hello from home this week. And Chris Wilson, thank you for joining us. And all of you guys on the interwebs and on Facebook, welcome. Today we're talking about AI art, which we recently started seeing coming on the scene about like a month or so. And we've seen some cool covers being made and coming out. Evan Gao from Story Origin reached out and he said, hey, this Richie Billing guy, he's been doing some neat stuff over there. You got to bring him on so we can hear what this AI art is all about. And so thank you so much for sharing your time and for joining us. I'm really excited for today's show.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for having me. I'm just like to say as well, I'm very psyched up after that trailer. I feel like I'm going to go and kill a load of bad guys or something like that.
Yes, I'm feeling the same thing too, or at least that could be the coffee speaking. I don't know. I'm not sure. When you get 4 cups in, it starts to rush. But Walt,
No, I'm not jittery until 4 pots in.
4 pots in. Okay. Well, that's that Kona stuff that you get. It must be like boiling through your veins like a volcano.
No, the only thing I got to do is figure out a better way to mainline this stuff rather than just running an IV. I tried Camelback once, but then it all tasted like plastic.
No, that's not good. All right, so how's everyone's week been? For me, I've just been diving into the editing, and I'm trying to jump also into the Forgotten Ruin to research that and to start getting book ideas together for this challenge I've taken on. Walt, how's your week been?
Oh, God. Right before I was doing this with you guys, I had to disassemble because I got my microphone stand right off camera, and I got my cool microphone right here, and I was recording the first chapter in the second serial for the Galaxy's Edge Insiders. Yes. So this is Tyrus Rex Bounty Hunter, and this one's called Game of Death. Ooh. So if you like Boba Fett, if you like Star Wars, and if you like all that, not under some sort of a mouse, and you want it fun and fast and furious and all the things that we used to love about wars in space, it's fun. But my voice is trashed because there was one character I was voicing, and I'm like, it's like Yoda on speed, and I really need water or honey or something.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yes, I can't wait to hear that.
How about I've had one of them weeks where I decided to take on a project and an insane amount of time to do it. I was flirting. Well, I've been flirting for a while about bringing out a book on world building, and I've got it all planned out, and it's sort of half written, and I sort of challenged myself to bring it out for Christmas. And I had a little drunken episode the other night where I was texting my brother-in-law, who's an artist, and he does all my cover art. And I basically put the order in for the artwork, and then I forgot about it. And then he texted me saying, "Oh, I've started work on that." And I was like, "Oh, bloody hell, I forgot about that." So now I'm committed. I'm committed now. I've got to go and write this book in about a month I've given myself. So, yeah, slow progress so far.
Nice.
But yeah.
So you already have the Fantasy Writers Handbook out, a complete guide to writing fantasy. And you've got the Fantasy Writers Toolshed. That's a podcast.
Yeah.
What else? What else do you have out there? And how'd you get into writing in the first place?
So, I suppose I'll tell you how I got started. I used to be a lawyer. I absolutely hated it because it was mind-numbing. And you come home and you wanted to do something a bit more creative, a bit more inspiring with your life, but you were just so dead mentally. And someone got me back into reading fantasy. Like when you go to college, university, you're just reading textbooks, and my sort of pleasure reading just completely died. But I sort of started doing it again around the age of 22, 23. And I got really into fantasy. Again, I used to love it as a kid. And when I was reading it, I was sort of finding that I was missing having like a little project to work on, like something creative. I used to love essays in university in a weird way. It was just that project. So I decided to start writing fantasy because I was enjoying all these stories. And I was like, what they've given me at this period in my life when I'm feeling a bit lost, I'd love to give that back to other people. So I started writing stories and just got absolutely hooked on it. And it's become a bit of part of my daily life now ever since. That's been about 8 years now. So anything I learn, I just give back. And that's why I got into doing my website, which is just like blogging about what I've learned essentially. And then I put all of that into a book, which was a Fantasy Writers Handbook. And then from that, people were saying we want basically more. So started the podcast, and that sort of was popular without me even realizing because I didn't really put much into it. I was just basically talking about and interviewing people about things that I didn't know much about, and people find it really useful as well. So that's just sort of taken off, and I'm just made up really that you can, whenever you learn something, you put it back out there and people are finding it useful and it's really helping them, and that's what keeps me going essentially. Every time I feel like giving up, I get like a little email from someone that just think, all right, then we'll just keep going for a little bit longer. But
it's like
it's just a bit relentless, isn't it? The writing life.
That email's like Sam giving you a voice of encouragement in your dark hour to keep going.
Yeah, it's just like someone saying, "Oh, I found the podcast and I've really found it useful," or "I've read this and this is like answer the question I've always had." So that's what makes it worthwhile for me, and I think that sort of all the actual fiction writing gets drowned out by all of the sort of the writing itself, and helping people with the writing. So I do write books and stories too. I've got a fantasy novel out called Pariah's Lament. But it's like, yeah, I don't know. That's probably the sum of what I've done so far.
Yeah, what's it about fantasy that just like really touches the heart? It makes you feel like the author's kind of like reaching out to the book to you to kind of give you hope.
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose you can have those grand stories, and you can have the characters that probably like the underdogs, and all they've got is hope. And for a lot of people around the world in real life, that's all they've got is hope. I'm one of them people. So yeah, so I think people find it quite relatable, but at the same time, you can live experiences and different lives and explore different worlds that you would never get from other books. And that's what it was always about for me as a kid, the escapism, like reading The Hobbit and going on these adventures. Like you can't really. That's a special thing, and that's, a lot of people obviously experience the same kind of things. But I think we all like books for different reasons, don't we? We get different things from. What about you guys? You big fantasy fans?
I love Tolkien and Lewis and Mercedes Lackey and lots of different fantasy authors. You know, we were just talking about Harry Potter the other night on Hank's podcast. But what I love about fantasy is, the escapism, but it's like you're being taken along on the journey by a friend. Yeah. And, you know, Tolkien, he had this idea that you go on a journey, and as the main character gets changed, you kind of get changed too. And then you come back home a new man, and you bring the gifts from the road home again with you. Yeah. And you're transforming your home. Walt, you're muted, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I don't want you guys to hear my... So I have a Belgian Malinois who is sitting right next to me, and he was complaining about the mail lady that he's not allowed to go out and see on his own because he's like... he likes to ram his nose into her mailbag at about 30 looking for treats. And she's not a big girl. He just takes her off her feet, and we can't have that. So
ouch.
I doubt you guys wanted to hear him singing at that point.
Well, hello, Bowder.
Yeah, he's laying right next to me like, fine, she's gone. You guys suck.
Yeah.
But fantasy for me was kind of a mixed bag and a mixed blessing. In the beginning, it was very hard, which is why I chased it in the first place, because English is not my first language, and the ability to see all these grandiose words and the triumph to kind of say, I conquered this page today, you know, even though I didn't even know what grandiose meant, you know, I had to look it up and kind of, negotiate my way through. So like, things like Robert E. Howard and the Conan series. I mean, the Tolkien, like we said, Rob Salvatore and his Crystal Shard series, the Dragonlance saga. It was just like, the more I got into it, the more I wanted it. Not because so much the escapism. I just wanted. I was really addicted to these people's imaginations. The things that they were coming up with and fabricating out of whole cloth, out of just their head alone, you know, and then later on making the transition to like thrillers like David Morrell and Tom Clancy, horror, Stephen King and Dean Koontz. And, you know, during a time when there was really no internet, no promotion, whatever, the only promotion you had was those bookshelves. God, that was like a treasure trove walking in, and you see those bookshelves and you're like, yes, this is awesome. I'm going to get a good book today, you know. And it was during the 80s and 90s when everybody was just like, well, does it have Jean-Claude Van Damme in it? Because if it doesn't have that, I don't want to listen. No, you know, or like, you know, if it didn't have an action star or a half-naked woman on the cover, you know, then nobody would touch it. But I was like, more for me. Those pages are mine now. So, in fact, I don't know if you can see it on my bookshelf near my mother-in-law's walker that I still have to give back to her now that I fixed it. There was a very famous painting by Frank Frazetta called The Death Dealer.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just this dude with his horn helmet riding a horse, and he just looks very ominous. And I was very excited as a kid because I learned what ominous meant. He actually contracted an author to create an entire novel line based off that painting. And it spawned multiple paintings, blah, blah, blah. You can't get it in digital. It's not on audio. The only way to get it is through those books right there. And they are hard to find, and they're very expensive. So I think I paid for the 4-book set. I actually got a real deal on it. I think I paid $124. But like, I really... Walt is basically describing my childhood. Yes, Chris, let's do this.
Chris also wants to know if your toe's feeling better.
For those of you who don't know, Balder really wanted to go with me to my doctor's appointment yesterday. and I tripped over him and broke my toe on the side of the bed. Yeah. So, but like, yeah, those books, the only way you can get them are in hard copy, and but they spawned a whole. I wish I'd never lost those Death Dealer books. When I'm done, we can share. we have modern technology and mail. It's all good. But like, yeah, those books as a kid, you know, especially going along hand in hand with like Conan, oh my God, I can't. The Pilgrim from Robert Howard. Oh God, what's his name? Solomon Kane. There we go. Solomon Kane. You know, stuff like that. The thing I really loved about those stories were they were unapologetic about the material. You know, and that's what I found. Kind of like The Witcher. I got those figures up there that my wife bought me for Christmas last year. But I'm a huge fan of the series because it's a series that takes fantasy and says the monsters aren't the ones that are horrifically shaped, or you know, these demons or whatever. They're not the monsters. We're the monsters, because we kill everything we don't understand right away without taking the time to understand it. You know, and it's you know, that is what I really enjoy about fantasy. Very well written fantasy does amazing things for your imagination, but at the same time, you can wrap things you want to talk about into those narratives, and that's probably what's being done with AI generated art right now, right, Richie?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, and when you were talking there about like the artwork for that story,
Frank Frazetta.
novel, yeah. A lot of people I know have been using AI to do something similar.
Yeah. So can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so I'll tell you how I sort of came about it. I was, it was off the back of a short story, and I was just finished it. I really liked it, and usually I've always just followed the process of just sending it out to publishers. But I was thinking, what do I want to gain from the short story? Is there like what are my priorities at the moment? And I'm always conscious of building my mailing list. And in the past, I've had short stories published, and you might get a few people join your mailing list, but maybe a handful. Saying that, I've never really been published in anywhere big, so it might be different for bigger publishers. But I decided that what I would do instead is I was using Story Origin quite a lot at the moment, and I put that short story into a book, and needed a cover, and the pointer I was trying to do with this little project of mine was to do it free. I didn't want to spend anything at all, so I heard about this AI generator called Wombo Dream, and it's just an app on your phone. You can only use it on your phone, which is a bit frustrating, but yeah. So you just go on, and it was literally to ask you to write a prompt or like a keyword for the kind of theme of the cover or the image that you want to create. And then it just asks you to choose a style. So there was like fantasy styles and more sort of artistic styles. And you just sort of have a little play around, and it will produce decent things. It took a while to get something that I liked. It's always a bit vague and abstract, but I have seen some people create absolutely amazing pieces of artwork. I mean, I can show you what I created. I know you mentioned that there was a bit of a presentation feature on here.
Yeah.
Do you want me to show you?
Yeah, sure. That'd be awesome.
Okay. Share screen. So hopefully you can see this now. Right, is that working? Yeah. So this is what I created. It's just nice and colourful and vibrant, and I wanted something that basically catches the eye. It doesn't really look. It sort of has a look. It looks like a wolf, but when you look at it, really, it doesn't. So it took a while to get something that I found that I liked, or it was suitable enough, and then I just used Photoshop to put a quick bit of text over the image, and then I used Story Origin to create this reader magnet. And what I did was join group promos, newsletter swaps, and I've been doing that for about, I think this has probably been going for about 3-4 months. And I just had to check before we started, and I'd had 467 email subscribers. So I never expected to get that many. And from a short story, I've never gotten anywhere near that from like a publication in a magazine or anything like that. So as an experiment, I thought that was quite successful. And that was just simply using a bit of AI art. And since I've used that, then like Wombo Dream has gone absolutely insane. It's like it's expanded significantly. You can get all different kinds of options, and the sort of quality of the images it produces is much better. So you can also get like different styles. So you can get like an anime style, a futuristic style. There's all kinds of community features now, so you can share things and with other people, and you can get ideas from other people then as well. So that is, if anyone's like going down the self-publishing route, like I don't know if you guys have ever experimented with it, but it can be really expensive. Book covers can $100 plus, like as a sort of cheap one. And then if you hardbacks as well, you've got like the paperback, sorry, then you've got the back cover. So it's just like it's an expense that we don't, because there's no guarantee that we're ever going to make it back. So I always think just put as little cost into it as possible. But yeah, I don't know. It's a new option for authors, and it's a great tool. And I think beyond book covers as well, like if you're trying to create some promotional material for any of your books or your stories, then yeah, that's it. It's another fantastic tool for that.
Now, one of my friends, Alice Peng, she's written some stuff for some game developers, and she's a very, very, very smart young lady. She has been using Midjourney, and her ability to actually craft enough narrative to give the parameters of the AI. This is one of the images she produced.
Oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
So
that is gorgeous.
The AI is capable of learning.
Mhm.
So that was one of them. This was actually another. Let me frame it so it doesn't look strange.
So the last one was like a lady knight with flaming red hair and intense look straight at the viewer, and that eye contact helps to bring people in. Here's another one.
This is another one she created. Her understanding of the parameters that the AI is looking for is really contributing to these images being far surpassing to what people are just going in and being like, Hobbit with a machine gun. So her able to actually like pen this stuff so that the AI learns and seeks the right sources is really impressive. And then we have, this is another one that she did recently, there.
The last one was like a young teenager in a flak jacket, and kind of this look of like, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm on a journey, I'm maybe an orphan, I don't know, but he's by himself, so we want to know more about his story. And this lady, what would you say about her, Walt?
Very color washed. This is almost like a watercolor that you might see an actual traditional artist create, and she used the language necessary to actually produce something like this. Like I said, her understanding of the AI and what it understands and how it progresses is very advanced. So she is able to craft these images using the AI, and it produces a level that we're seeing that of far surpassing the very smudgy, very blurry AI images we see in a lot of the AI produced stuff. But then, like right here, let me kill this one. Stop screen. Excuse me. I am dying from narrating. There's this one here, and this actually leads into a question that I had posted in the group that we could ask you. So this obviously a very superhero image. And one of the things that we see here in this image is that, let me see if I can get the better of the two that's a little lighter. so that it will show up easier on screen. There we go. So this actually brings a question for you, Richie, which is the AIs, excuse me, are not creating this art. So they are actually taking bits of pieces and information of, excuse me, the AIs out to get me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't give away the secret. They're actually scouring the web for art resources and then taking those resources and mashing them together and stripping out extraneous bits to create an image. Now, in an image like this was obviously used by, and I need to, there we go, got my voice back. This was obviously used because of the color palette and because of the shape of the eyes and the way that it's put together. This was probably sourced from very heavily from Marvel Comics. The dead giveaways are the Spider-Man eyes, the frame of the face, and how the hair doesn't exactly match the head, because the head is obviously a Spider-Man head that was clipped from somewhere. And then the color palette, this particular color palette is very indicative of a character named Dr. Octopus. It's a specific kind of purple that they used in the late 70s and 80s. So what happens to an author when somebody demands to see the source code that this was stripped from? What happens when Marvel Comics says, I want to see the blockchain that leads back to the art resources you use to make sure you're not using our property? What happens to those authors? And are an author who uses resources like this, are you prepared? Do the AI companies indemnify you so that you can't be sued?
That's a very good question, isn't it? I'm sure it's gonna there's gonna be some litigation about it down the line. I think if it was like just from working in the industry, if you received this sort of cover and you can see that it's obviously like a bit like Spider-Man, I don't think, just from a cautious perspective, you're not going to use
common
it.
sense.
Yeah, don't use it.
Don't use it.
And I've not personally come across anything that an AI thing is produced and I've thought that looks a bit like something. I wouldn't use it otherwise. It's you like you say, you run into really dangerous territory, and we know how ruthless some of these companies can be. Yeah, so I think you've got to be very careful, and because it's such a new technology, yeah, it's really untested, and like I know there's more of these apps coming out, and there was a new one that's just come out called Wonder. There's another one called Starry AI, and yeah, like you say, it's really dangerous when it's just taking bits and pieces of all different things and just putting them all together, and it's a bit tricky, isn't it?
Are they sourcing the images from like all of the internet or just from a specific place? Like, it'd be great if it was just Unsplash or something like Creative Commons only.
Yeah. Well, you can code it. You can not code it, but you can tell the AI, public domain only, or blah 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 blah. But for those people who aren't doing that and are creating hey, I want Halo with stormtrooper elements and with a rocket pack like the Rocketeer, you're telling the AI where to go for those images because you're naming those properties. The only problem is those properties have copyrights attached. So at what point, is it safe to is that safe to use? I know I wouldn't want to chance it. I mean, because what happens if you've already sold, like one of these companies comes at you and you've already sold 1,000 copies of something at $4.99 a piece, right? And this company now wants a piece of that, but you haven't paid the editor yet. You haven't paid this yet. You haven't even been paid yet. And they want their piece because you use their property. Whether you agree with it or not, that I would be very careful. Like we saw somebody in one of our Signal groups created a picture using, and I'm looking at it now. I don't want to share it just because it's very, it's very good, but it's very indicative. But they used, the image and likeness of Stephen Lang. They used elements of Halo and Mass Effect for the armor. And you really can't see the Halo, so kudos on them. But like, you can definitely see the Mass Effect. Like that's Mass Effect armor. And then they did other ones of like, and it looks like Star Wars. Like straight out Star Wars. And it's like that's fun for a creative exercise, but I wouldn't use it as book cover.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see, because I know there are certain rules that'll, if it's sufficiently different, or if there's like only very small percentages of pieces used, it sort of falls under like a threshold.
Gotcha.
Whether the AI is falling beneath that threshold and taking tiny little bits of everything, then it's going to be interesting to see. And I suppose the only way you would understand any of that is if there was a legal case and the court's got a chance to examine the code and how it uses it, and you analyze the percentages of what it's used up to create the image. And it could just be like a case-by-case basis. Each one is going to be very different because it's so random.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, well, what would be your alternative to potentially using someone else's art? And then I was thinking, well, you could pick a scene from your book that is more human, or even a scene with more of a landscape. But then I was thinking, if you put in like alien landscapes, you might end up accidentally taking art from like ArtStation. ArtStation has fantastic art, but that is like painstakingly handmade by a human artist who put in like hours of their time, and they really ought to get paid and not have their art just like ripped out and mishmash with other people's art. Like, that's not fair to what they've done with their lives to create that art. So what do you do?
There's another app that I've come across, and I've not tried it yet, but it's called Neural Paint, and you basically upload an image that you've taken on your phone, or a bit like a scenery or anything like that, and it'll convert it into all different kind of styles of painting.
Okay.
So it's your image, and you just get to play around with it, and you never know, you might be able to make something quite good with it.
Did you say neural art?
Neural Paint.
Yeah.
Neural Paint.
Neural Paint, yeah. Neural Paints.
Yeah, there's a couple of things like that, and they'll some of these services will actually like let you take a photo that you either own or have the rights to, and will either posterize it, cartoonize it, act like it's done an oil painting. So there's several different options to that, and if you have a little bit of knowledge with like Photoshop and stuff like that, you can actually clip and pull out resources that, once again, you either license or own, and then Neural Paint. Leo.
Yeah, Leo got some of your scotch in here, just so you know, just a little bit.
But yeah, so those have been popular for a little bit, and the great thing about those is you already own. Well, hopefully own, one of the image. If you take a picture of Darth Vader at Disneyland and and use an AI to paint it, it's still a picture of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Kit asks, isn't taking bits from existing art what human artists do, even if unconsciously, or human authors?
Same.
Yeah. So it's like musicians as well, like the big case about Led Zeppelin a few years ago and Stairway to Heaven. So I don't know. I think that there is an element of like things being subconsciously copied, and
I would think as long as you are, like Lauren had said earlier, as long as you're being sufficiently and Richie even alluded to this, being sufficiently different in altering the thing, what you're trying to avoid is trying to avoid likeness. So like if you have, that picture of Darth Vader that you took on your phone and you use that as part of an AI to sculpt an image and of Smarth Mater, and Smarth is not as tall as Darth, but if there is a similarity, you should be okay. It's when the likeness is too similar, like everybody knows what Halo Spartan armor looks like, and you could, if you look at the covers for the Ruins of the Galaxy stuff, right? Chris Hopper's the art that and he and Jeff Chaney have put on those books are very reminiscent of that, like Halo-esque, but it had its own feel, So like while it was very it had that integrated and like strapped on armor feel, it didn't resemble Halo. Like you didn't really get that connection. It might have been a similar art style, but not a similar, an actual look. So I think as long as you have similarity but avoid likeness, you should be fine.
Yeah, I always think it's nice to show your influences as well, and that's not like a form of copying. It's just more paying like homage to the people who've made a big difference on your writing. And I suppose it makes I don't know, like authors are always asked, aren't they, to compare your style to other authors, and you just sort of align yourself with people who've influenced you, and that's the kind of story I want to tell, kind of thing.
If you look at George Lucas, he in many of his interviews, he said his main influences were Flash Gordon and Kurosawa films. So I mean, he name dropped like a champion.
Now, guys, what do we need an AI cover to do, or just like book covers in general? And then can AI deliver? Leo says they can't create new things. At best, they can amalgamate. So what are we going for with a book cover when we publish it? What does it need to accomplish? And then do we think AI covers can actually suit that?
Yeah, I do love the psychology behind book covers. That's always something that's interested me when it comes to marketing. I always like to have bold colors, contrasting colors on there, just so it grabs attention. Having good images, like there's really interesting schools of thought on having characters on there. You showed a few images there that might have been really good for book covers because it's got that character's face, and there's something about I think there's some kind of science behind it, some scientific study that I can't remember, that people that covers that have people's faces on it are generally better received by authors. Is that it there?
Here's Fortitude by Dan Cranshaw, and his pirate face is right there. And then on the other hand, I've got Pathfinder. So not a human face at all, but a monster face, right at the front of that.
You cannot go wrong with that Wayne Reynolds art. Oh my God, I love his art.
Yeah, very cool.
Reading both of those.
And in contrast,
they're really good examples because they both sort of grab attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
In very different ways.
In contrast, if you look at some of the stuff that we have coming out from some of the AI stuff, this is an example of an AI created image. But but once again, it's very loose. Like Leo was saying, it can't create anything. It's the only thing it's going to do is amalgamate based on your they can assemble data and advise. Creativity is still the domain of humanity.
Yeah, definitely.
And those who don't know Leo, his secret is he knows about this stuff.
You can see where human creativity drove this cover. So you've got like a wizardy guy with a backpack kind of in the foreground, and he's facing away from us, but he's facing into a room of doors with bookshelves on them and a light behind them, and it kind of looks like tunnels, and I could pass through those corridors into maybe new worlds. I don't know, but I want to find out. Like some human was figuring this out and imagining this up in conjunction with an AI tool.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it, to see what, like, I found that I did struggle to get what I wanted, though. And like you say, if you know how this technology works, I'm sure you're going to get much better results. Obviously, a lot of trial and error as well, but it is, especially if you're on a budget, it just makes these things so accessible. Yeah, so it's interesting to see where it's going to go next, but it could go down the pan like you pointed out, Walt.
It's going to go up what?
It could all go down the pan like you said.
Oh yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you still, technically this is still AI assistance. It's not technically true AI driven because it's still a human placing parameters into a machine to develop an outcome.
Yeah.
So like, but like, where'd it go? Let me stop sharing. But for example, right? And this is where you could get into some trouble. What happens when you use, you say something like, yes, blah, 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 and Samuel L. Jackson.
Too
the
close.
cheekbones, structure around the eye, the mouth, the way his jaw is presented. And even the forehead, the way, like if you're a huge fan of Samuel L. Jackson, these mother trucking snakes on these mother flinging planes, right? you see this, and Richie, do you know what the uncanny valley is? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
No.
So that's when something is near lifelike,
yeah,
but has not it's too perfect. It's not approximated the flaws of true humanity, so your brain automatically rejects it. It's like looking at a robot that's trying to pass itself off as human, and you automatically know it's a robot.
Yeah.
At what point does the uncanny valley come in and you say like, yeah, this is cool, but yeah, this is, there was no human interaction into this, but like Leo was saying earlier, the AI can only assist and amalgamate. It can't actually create on its own.
Yeah. I mean, when you're looking at that image, you can tell it's, I don't know, it doesn't look like a human face.
Right.
Like that eye there's no life behind that eye.
Yeah.
And like that's where the artist touch comes in, and then fine little details what just gives like the eyes that tell you so much about this person's life.
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely
the beauty of art, like, and I suppose that's the limitation of AI, unless it somehow figures out how to do
that. Which would be scary.
Yeah.
Gabe says many of the AIs will allow you to host your own art or commissioned art for reference, then reiterate them in a particular style. I think that's cool. How the best AI assisted work is being generated. So it's possible you could get art from maybe Fiverr. You could get art from Unsplash. Yeah. You could get art from cheaper places. And while we're talking about cheaper, kind of what is the budget that we're looking at for AI art? And what can you do with that budget? But there are ways to do this legally and still get artists paid for their time. They can debate that about Fiverr, but.
And speaking of time, should we talk about our spotlight?
Sure, that would be wonderful. And we'll get back to budget right after that. For
and
spotlight.
are you spotlighting or am I?
Well, I would love for you to do it, but if your allergies and whatnot are good.
All right, here we go. So this week's spotlight is on a Fantasy Writers Handbook, a complete guide to writing fantasy by Richie Billing. Do you love to write fantasy? Do you find it sometimes a struggle? Does world building daunt you? Great word use. Do magic systems melt your mind? Do you tie yourself up in knots when it comes to plotting? Have you ever wondered about the best way to write battle scenes? Well, you wonder no more. A Fantasy Writer's Handbook is the complete guide on how to write fantasy. It first takes a look at how to write fiction, exploring characters, plot, dialogue, theme, conflict, prose, and more. The handbook then turns to fantasy writing tips, exploring every aspect of how to write a fantasy novel, from creating original races and world building to how to write battle scenes and create fantasy armor and weapons. You should go to Ren Fair and commission stuff. Throughout, you'll find plenty of ideas, inspiration, and fantasy writing prompts for your own stories. Beyond writing fantasy, the Handbook looks at how to get published, how to build a website, write a blog, and build your author brand and platform. A truly accessible resource that's helped fantasy writers land book deals. A Fantasy Writers Handbook is ideal for anyone looking for help and guidance on how to write a fantasy novel, as well as for anyone looking to learn more about writing and world building. The help doesn't stop with the book, however. Readers can access further writing advice and tools, as well as an invitation to an exclusive writing group via Richie Billing's website, www.richiebilling.com.
Yay!
Should be doing radio on something.
I've been told, but mostly by my mom, who used to say I had a face for radio.
Cool.
She loves you. That's love.
Yeah.
In her words. Wait, how would she say that in Italian?
Do you really want me to say
Yes,
it?
I really.
Another time.
Okay. Richie didn't know we were going to spotlight his book. Yeah, Richie.
Very nice.
So,
very nice. Yeah, thank you very much.
On the show, like halfway through, Kayleen usually is the one who's here and she reads it. She's amazing. And we were looking at your Amazon today and we wanted to pick one out. And we saw that one and we're like, that's the one. So many times when you're writing your book, you kind of feel lonely and like you've got questions about how to do it. Like, how do you write a battle scene, for example? And then you get yourself on the internet and then you're down the rabbit hole of looking at this article and that article and talking to that friend, and you lose a lot of writing time actually looking. So we were thinking, yeah, if you've got a book that has the answers to all of these common questions, it's right there. It'll save you time in the middle of your writing process. So, yeah. So thank you for writing that. So yeah, you were inspired by fantasy to write your own novel, and then it took you on that journey, and now you're taking other authors on the journey too. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So so back to budget, because if we can't pay for these things, then we can't be doing them because life is expensive. So what does the budget look like for AI art?
Well, I challenged myself to do this for free.
Oh, okay.
Apart from my story origin subscription, which is $10 a month, which is more than worth it. If you're trying to invest in growing your mailing list, like story origin is just like insanely cheap for that. You can get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of email subscribers just for that $10 a month. I've not come across anything that's better value for money for growing mailing lists and finding new readers that way. So that was the only investment, and I went off and just downloaded that Wombo Dream app for free. You can still download it for free on iPhone and Android, and there are premium versions if you want to get more styles and stuff like that, but just have a go with the free stuff and see how you get on. And then I did already have Photoshop installed, so I suppose you could get away with doing Microsoft Paint if you wanted to do it like proper cheap. Or you could, if you know anyone who's got a bit of a graphic design head on them, then you could get them to do it for you. But try and source that as cheaply as you can. I'm sure Fiverr, if you've got the stock art, then you can just give it to an artist just to do that quick on Fiverr quite cheaply, I suppose. And then just listing it on Story Origin and then sharing it as much as you can, and that's it really. And you've got all them email subscribers, and it's up to you what you do with them. Then you've got to try your best to befriend them all and get to know them and build a relationship so that they look forward to hearing from you and you add value to their lives when that email lands in their inbox. So yeah, that's a beast on its own. So I won't go into that anymore.
So Story Origin, that's a platform that you can join, and it's a tool that has a lot of different aspects of writing all in one place. But the big thing it sounds like you used it for was building that email list. Could you just explain that real quick for those of us who are new to Story Origin? Yeah,
so Story Origin is a bit of a one-stop shop for like all different kinds of services, which people always used to talk about, but never really gave you an idea as to how to do them. So like newsletter swaps, I mean, it's a brilliant idea and it's really effective, but unless you've got a broad network of writer friends, it's absolutely you're not going to get very far with it. So Story Origin basically created a really simple platform where people can advertise their newsletter. You can verify how many email subscribers are on their list and how many times what percentage of people open emails and click on things on email, so you can properly vet whether that's going to be worth your time working with that person. So I've never encountered anything as simple as that as well, with just a few clicks of a few buttons. Like you basically all set up, ready to go, and it's just purely down to that person sending it out. Which, I mean, very occasionally you do get the odd person who doesn't stick to the word, but there are ways you can make sure that you're working with serious people who are going to help you out as much as you're helping them out. And as well as newsletter swaps, you've got these things called group promotions as well, which is basically like a newsletter swap, but like a massive one. And say you get like 100 authors, each giving away their book for free, and you can share that then with people on your email list, and they get access to all these free books, which is really cool. So it's a great thing to offer your email list. Like if you're a writer and you're trying to build engagement with your followers on a regular basis, sending them links to free books, like if they like reading, then that's quite useful. If you ask me,
they'd like reading.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's quite a helpful thing. So yeah, that's a great way to grow your followers as well, because you've got 100 authors sharing it with their email list then. So yeah, I suppose that's where the cover comes into things then. If you're on a list of 100 books, you've got to have a cover. All that person sees is the cover of every book. So you've got to have something that's going to stand out.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we were talking a bit earlier about the psychology behind covers and the different kind of styles and approaches that you can take. That is where you can experiment and see what works and what doesn't work. Like for this one, I just went with bright, vibrant colours and quite a vague image. It's not the best. I'm sure we've seen a lot better on this show tonight, but it's got me 400 email subscribers. So it just shows how accessible a method is to authors who are looking to grow the mailing list just off a simple short story.
Yeah, it's eye-catching and it's intriguing, and it also is a pretty simple image so that it can look small but sized down to an icon. One thing I look for, not just as eye-catching, but does it look professional? Sometimes when you get a cheaper cover, you can just tell right away it doesn't look professionally done. And then that makes me wonder, well, is the editing professional? And then that makes me wonder, like, is the story good? And if not, it might not be worth just my time even looking at it. Gabe points out, Gabe uses Midjourney for my cover, but with a cover designer to combine, arrange, and stylize elements. AI alone won't do it. So that's probably cheaper than just paying for a cover designer and artist to do all of the things. It's more like they're using it as a tool to make the job quicker and hopefully more efficient and cheaper.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be massively like time saving and cost saving as well. So that's another great method there from Gabe.
Yeah. Now, about a month ago, we had Chris Kennedy on the show, and he brought up AI art as a concern of his because he was concerned for the livelihood of artists out there. And Walt, I know this is really on your heart too, because you've got, you've worked with artists for years now, and you've got a great love for them, and that's part of who you are too. So what do you guys think? Do you think AI art is the doom of artists and their livelihood, or what? What do you think?
I don't think so, and I certainly hope it's not. Like, it's the same for AI writing tools as well. Like, I hate them things because they're just. I mean, I've tried using them. They're useful to a certain extent, and it's just like AI artwork. It's useful to a certain extent, but it's never ever gonna surpass human creativity. Like, Walt's just showing a picture there of Samuel L. Jackson, and we could tell just looking at it that there was something off about it. There was no humanity behind the sort of the facial features and the eyes and stuff like that, and that's where the humanity will always reign supreme. So I think it's probably enjoying a bit of a boom because people are able to do pretty cool things quite easily with it, but it's never going to take over human created art, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm the same way. We, you pulled up a Pathfinder book a little while ago, and that's got Wayne Reynolds art in it. And his art is absolutely amazing. So if I could share this right here. So you might be able to sculpt something close, but you're not going to get this level with AI. People who want this are going to look for Wayne Reynolds to do it. People who want, that intermix of the different of the different elements set around this unique style of Hydra, in a Greek hoplite, just getting ready to get after it and do the thing. You can program all those parameters in, but you're never going to get Wayne Reynolds style unless the AI is told to steal Wayne Reynolds style, in which case make sure with your very cheap art you hire a very expensive lawyer. When you ask Wayne Reynolds to create an Adiuk, which is a monster from back in the day, old school Dungeons and Dragons, if you ask somebody like Wayne to create that art, you're going to get this very fun image with a lot of motion and action and pieces. The AI will get you something similar, but unless you tell it to mimic Wayne's style, you're not going to get Wayne's style, and that's unless, once again, you have the art pilfer and steal from Wayne. Now, it's different when you get an artist that works in the same style because they've trained in that style. That's something different because now they're producing original works in the style of the artist, right? As like hey man, I love what you do. I want to do it like you as an honor to you, right? That's something we can all appreciate, rather than an AI that is plugging in pieces like a puzzle. The art still looks amazing, and still can look very amazing, but it like was saying earlier, it's not the same thing. It's not somebody. It's like Lauren had said, it's not somebody who spent some time, like my dog being a jerk. It's not somebody who spent the time to create it. It's an AI that has taken elements of something that already exists and put it together in a format that meets a certain set of parameters.
Yeah, I'm reading the chat right now. We've got a bit of debate going on about how can AI reach readers. Will it also replace artistry? I think there's an agreement that it won't replace human artistry, but it does make a good tool. As an editor, I use AI tools to help make my editing process more efficient. But if Pro Writing Aid gives me 400 suggestions, I'm accepting maybe 40 of them, and I still have to go through. But, I can read the book very carefully one time, and then I could read it a second time, and then put on Pro Writing Aid, and still it's catching things that I missed, my human eyes missed.
Yeah.
So I want that AI backup. Kit makes the point that it could be like photography. Portrait painters were impacted, but a few survive. And I just wanted to point out, so that picture behind me on the wall, can you see that? It looks like a photograph kind of from back here. It's not, it's pencil.
Oh, amazing.
William Harrison, he drew that. It's amazing. And I think you can get the textures of that girl's outfit better than a photograph. There's just something about that human touch that just can't be replaced even by a camera.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
I'm the same way with my friend John. John, I've worked almost, it's 15, 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just an amazing artist. Like the second his pencil hits the page, it's going to be something special, like the piece I just shared. All these little elements come together to like, I mean, and John's art is just I can't say enough about John's art. And yes, you can program all these little elements, but are we really going to have protractors on the shelf with an AI? How about an actual knife where if you look right here, this is a working knife with a thumb stud, which is how the knives of today are produced. So like those little details an AI might miss, and you're going to have to come in the back end and still put in more work because you want this level of amazing. And this is right from John's ArtStation page. But yeah, he it's all those little details. Like Kit was saying, it could be like photography, right? You're going to have the ones who are like, well, screw it, I'm not going to put any work into it, I'll just plug it into an AI. But you're going to have that segment of the art population or the artist population that's going to say, no, I can still do this and do it so well. People want my stuff versus an AI, and it's the same reason like that brown blade that you see hanging up on the wall right there, right? None of my blades are wall hangers. They're not there for decoration. That sword has a Damascus pattern of like several hundred layers that was done by hand. That's you could fake that with a machine, but you're not going to get that quality, and people will still go out for that quality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Chris Wilson makes the point that a lot of artists work with AI and they know those keywords and parameters so well that the art is pretty impressive just on its own. Instead of taking, I don't know, 50, 60 hours, but a whole lot of hours to create an image, they can generate it faster and save themselves some time and save you some money using AI to create a really compelling image. Like that last one you shared, that was an example of a story, a picture that tells 1,000 words. But you would need a human mind to come up with some
all
of those
details.
To create that story. But could that human use AI to save them, do it in a day as opposed to a week? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And we saw the same thing when artists started using the Quake engine and the Unreal engine from the video game space to actually create 3D art that worked into the development of a program called Poser. You see guys like our friend Bill Frisbee, who was making covers for a long time just using 3D rendering programs. And his covers were pretty good, like as far as like what you could get out of a program like that. But you're always going to have room for artists, I think.
Yeah, and it never know, it could help artists make even more money. Like I was in Belgium a few months ago, and there was this painter called Rubens, and he would sign everything off and put a signature on every painting that went out of his shop, but he would not paint all of them paintings. If it would go by how much the person paid him. So if they paid top dollar, he would do everything, every little detail. If they paid very cheaply, then he would get other people to do the painting and then basically sign it off. But it allowed them to create a thriving business. He could create thousands of paintings, and it could help artists. So if they could do like quick, short jobs, they could use AI to help them in that process and shave tens of hours off the time, and then they can generate more money because they can mix in the sort of longer artistic pieces with the sort of quick AI supported ones. So you never know. There's all different ways that you can use the technology to your advantage.
Oh yeah. So I used to do many moons ago. I used to do art for a living, many moons ago. So like I'm always on the lookout for great art programs because I still love to draw. I just don't have the time to do it anymore. But like if you share my screen, this is a program called Manga Studio. It's now called Clip Paint Pro. But one of the things like you were talking about, like AI assisting and this is an example of an assistance kind of deal. So like I could let me open a new file. Yep, that's fine, right? So now we have our canvas, and say I want to draw somebody opening a door. I can drag this resource into it, and now I can use this to create my initial lines or point of reference, or I can, like, if I wanted to do a top-down version. So now I have models. If I wanted to have her reaching for the door, and maybe holding some groceries, you know what I mean? So
guys, he's just clicking on the person's body and altering it, and it's creating a 3D image, and you're just moving the person around. It's nuts.
What I mean? So I can patting a dog or holding a dog leash while I'm walking in the door or something like that. So this is an example of a really great example of using a computer algorithm to create an assistant for you, because what this does is anytime you're dealing with art, you're always dealing with perspective. So like the perspective that I have here, and now it's not going to let me draw because I don't have my pen hooked up. But the perspective I have here is it's allowing me to see the lines and the perspective, so that this does look like a top-down image. So now I can get my initial sketch of the character, and then everything will be based off this: how I draw the street, the sidewalk, the grass, the whatever, the door. I can now use this to frame that perspective, and that's just a really great example of how like AI and stuff like that can help you. Because if I have to do this myself, I'm going to grab my cell phone. I'm going to grab, it's attached to something. I have a Gorilla Grip. I pin it to the door frame and then set it for a timer to take a picture of myself that I now have to hold out like this while I'm drawing. And
the angle's right.
yeah, the angle's wrong. I got to go take the picture again. I mean, this is very fast and very agile and allows me to create on the fly and very quickly. So yeah, stuff like that. AI is huge.
The guys are still debating, and Gabe makes an interesting point. A Mid-Journey painting just won an international art competition. The judges knew but didn't understand. Not all AI is equal, and there's room for all, but there should be boundaries.
And that's the thing too, because like with AI, people used to say computers would never beat a human champion in chess. There you go, right? But yeah. As long as it invokes something, it's still art, and at the end of the day, technically the AI is like using the resources like an erector set or like a Lego set. You're telling it what blocks to put in. There's still a human that has to touch in quotes that painting in order to get it, whatever. So I mean, yeah, there's still some viability to it. What do you think, Richie?
Yeah, I completely agree. Really, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, or whether it'll just sort of die out a bit. Like AI writing is starting to die out because everyone realizes it's rubbish, expensive and rubbish. So the art ones, I think I've had a bigger stamp on people's, made a bigger impression anyway on people, and there's definitely more use to them than other forms of creative AI, which is worrying for artists, definitely. But the way technology changes the world, like you either embrace it or you resist it, but there's always going to be that sort of call for pure art, and that's my favorite kind of art. So I'm still going to get all my main books are all going to be done by traditional proper artists. This was just a little experiment I did on the cheap, just to show people like what you can do on a shoestring with like one short story. So I hope it doesn't spread to like novels and stuff and impact people's like there's a lot of really good book cover artists and companies that help authors with their book covers, and that's like an industry that should continue to exist in spite of AI. You never know, they might all start using it. So who knows? It could be an interesting few years anyway for this little sector of the publishing industry.
Until Skynet takes over and then we're all done.
No. Are you planning on using AI for your world building book coming out, hopefully by Christmas?
No AI there. Unless some kind of AI thing can go out and write it for me. But no AI. I've like I say, my brother-in-law is the artist, and I've put the order in with him now. So it's off we go.
Well, you've already written one really helpful book for authors, and we're looking forward to the next one coming out on world building too. So best of luck on that writer's journey and assembling that tool shed, expanding the tool shed, building an edition. For the readers. We'll have to have you come back maybe to talk about world building.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Yay, that would be great.
People seem to love it. Absolutely love world building. So.
Yes, yeah, it's one of those things. Again, it's another rabbit hole that you can dive into, but it's so necessary for the story and for creating something good that can bring their readers into, jumping into that imaginative portal too. If your world's all laid out.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? So that book can help people figure out how.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of headaches. So I'm just going to be like the first one, just answering all people's questions, and I just having a handy little handbook there just to pick up and like a little FAQ kind of thing. So
and use. Yeah. And then if people have questions, where can they find you?
So best place to go is my website, richiebilling.com, and you can send me an email there, or you can join our writing group. So we're on Discord and Facebook as well. So there's a lot of good writing chat in there. And if you need to find people to read your stories or read chapters of your books, and there's always people doing like little feedback swaps there. So it's really, really helpful. So yeah, if anyone's looking for that kind of support, then head over to my website to learn more.
Yeah, add to your community. And check out Story Origin especially if you want to build up your newsletters and get into some swaps and organize that all in one space. Well, Richie, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing. And Walt, thank you for hopping on too, especially with all those pictures. Now I've got a good idea in my head of what's possible. And thank you, audience, for coming on the show. Leo, Kit, Gabe, Charlie, who am I missing? Chris. Thank you guys for joining us on your writer's journey. I'm Lauren Moore. With me is Walt. Come back in a couple weeks. We're going to have Ellen Campbell on the show, and we're going to talk about dialogue and how to make it spicy and intense and not boring.
Nice.
Yeah, we want it to be real good, right? And we'll be here for reading, writing, everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium.